an introduction to the theme of the service, to what we will talk about later on, to one of the readings. We're going to talk about travelling later in the service, learning about Paul and his missionary travels from that story which we shall read in the Acts of the Apostle. Now, I've got a couple of slides to show here. Let's have a look at the first one, Martin. Do you recognise this man? No? He's been in the news. Do you know the name of his dog? Shoo-Shoo. That man walked 160 miles from Mariupol in the Ukraine to a place of freedom back in the further into the country. 160 miles. And he walked with his dog. There's an act of dedication if there ever was one. He wanted to get away from war. He wanted to get far away. And he didn't really know where he was going, but he apparently walked all the way. Try another one. Do you recognise this coach? You win on that one, can't you? Yeah! We shall see it in a week or so, shan't we? Won't the coronation coach feature in one of the processions over the Jubilee weekend? It's reported that the Queen found it very uncomfortable. And I gather that this time round she's not going to ride on it, but the television company are going to project stories on pictures in the windows. We'll wait to see how that works out. But that is a carriage from about 1760, which is quite an achievement in itself. And it will be seen, as I say, sometime over the Jubilee weekend. Coaches were used by the wealthy and the important people. And otherwise people walked, although some had use of horses. Next slide, please. How do you think, this is a painting of St. Paul. It's been very hard to find decent pictures of St. Paul. This is by El Greco, a well-known painter, of course. How do you think he walked around the areas that were covered in the Acts? It wasn't in a coach. It might have been on a horse. He might have walked. He might have walked. So in his travels, he had additional issues to cope with, I should think. Certainly difficulties. And how far could he walk? Now, I learned that soldiers could march about 30 miles a day. But obviously, lowly citizens couldn't do that. They weren't as fit, and they were of all ages. And so the suggestion is they walked 20 miles a day. All of us are a bit past walking 30 miles, walking 20 miles, walking 10 miles, I suspect. But that gives you an indication, a sense of the scale which was involved in travelling in the around the Holy Land, around Asia Minor, and so on. The roads weren't too bad, thanks to the Romans who built them. But I guess at the time of Paul, these were early days for Roman road building. And how good would the maps be? Huh? How do you know where to go? No sat-nav, sorry. Oh, and the Ukrainian? Apparently he was all right. The dog was tired and had sore feet, but he kept going.